Good evening to those bored enough to watch. Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart is a game I believe is an enjoyable experience due to several factors including its story and gameplay. I felt as though the story in particular does a good job at making use of its two protagonists rather than just one, and that both main characters felt important to the story, and I didn't feel as though anyone was unjustifiably left out. The gameplay was also really fun and engaging with numerous additions that contribute to it feeling like a well-executed experience. In this video, I want to discuss that and why I would recommend this game. So, with that said, let's discuss Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart. The game begins in an alternate dimension with a Lombax named Rivet traversing a place known as Nefarious City undercover to find and steal an infobot. Upon doing so, she notices someone being cornered by robots who wish to do them harm. Rivet intervenes and gives them her helmet which they use to get to safety. On the other hand, she gets cornered by Nefarious's forces. Meanwhile, Ratchet and Clank are in their own dimension having a celebration held for them with a gift from the latter to the former planned for the end. However, the festival is disrupted by Goons hired by Dr Nefarious to attack them. At the end of the festival, Clank reveals that he rebuilt a device known as the Dimensionator, which he gives to Ratchet in hopes that the two of them can venture out into the different dimensions in search of the other Lombaxes. Ratchet initially seems hesitant, but before he can voice his concerns, Dr. Nefarious arrives and steals it from them. Ratchet and Clank give chase to him and find themselves in Nefarious City in the midst of their pursuit. Within, the Dimensionator begins to malfunction and explodes, causing a dimensional cataclysm in the process. Ratchet, Dr. Nefarious, and Clank are separated, the last of which is taken by Rivet in hopes of finding answers as to what just happened. Dr. Nefarious's dimensional counterpart is the Emperor of this dimension, and with him currently absent and the Doctor waking up in his headquarters, he takes over and pretends to have returned. Meanwhile, Ratchet wakes up in a completely different part of the city and begins looking for Clank. In my opinion, this opening portion does a good job at establishing various aspects of this game such as the story and the upcoming adventure, the basic controls for things like shooting, the combat, the weapons, and the first of many new mechanics in this game such as the Rift Tether which allows Ratchet and Rivet to warp to different parts of the level. I personally enjoyed my time with the combat in this game as I thought it was fun, engaging and challenging to some degree. Later additions to your moveset such as the Phantom Dash make traversal easier, although it's worth mentioning that the game still encourages you to learn the enemy attack patterns in order to evade them accurately without accidentally dodging into them, particularly in scenarios such as boss fights or whenever there's a lot of enemies on screen. During his ventures through Nefarious City, Ratchet quickly becomes aware of the resistance who are rebelling against the Emperor Nefarious. He also spots Clank as he flies away on Rivet's ship, and to find a ship of his own, he is directed to someone by the name of the Phantom, a member of the Resistance in this dimension who would otherwise be known as Skid McMarks and Ratchet. When Ratchet and the Phantom make it to safety, the latter offers a starship if the former helps take control of another ship that's nearby. Hence, after fighting off Nefarious's robots, the Phantom gives Ratchet Glitch, who will be useful for helping Ratchet move forward and gain access to a ship. Meanwhile, the Phantom surrenders himself. Ratchet then makes it to an access panel and puts Glitch to use, which is where the game introduces the player to her missions. There are a few of them throughout the game, some are mandatory and others are optional, and I found them to be interesting and a decent way to break up the combat-oriented portions of the game, while still maintaining enough action within these levels so that they don't feel fundamentally different to the point where you'd feel bored playing through them. After gaining access to the tower, Ratchet eventually boards a ship and flies away. Meanwhile, Rivet is listening to Clank's story about how everything currently ongoing came to be and is expressing skepticism and her belief that he's lying. Their discussion is interrupted when the Mords, of whom are friends of Rivet, call and inform her that they're under attack. Hence, after their ship crashes, Rivet begins making her way to them. Rivet finds the Goons from earlier threatening the Mords as they've mistaken her for Ratchet. She takes them down and they direct her to a dimensional anomaly which is revealed to be a space between dimensions. These puzzle sections are exclusive to Clank and eventually a character we come to know as Kit, as they have to guide what is known as their possibilities to a meta-terminal over the course of 3 levels. I found these puzzles to be engaging and interesting, and figuring them out for myself was somewhat of a rewarding experience, although they do definitely become somewhat stale on repeat playthroughs, which normally leads to me skipping them during such occasions. After fixing the dimensional anomaly, the Mords trapped inside are rescued, and after fighting more Goons and a creature known as a Grumthor, Rivet reaches her hideout with Clank. There she watches his memories and finds that his story about the malfunctioning Dimensionator was true. She then explains that due to the nature of her dimension and how it's run by the Emperor Nefarious and his robots, she's developed a distrust for robots, which explains her distrust for Clank. Before the conversation goes any further, one of Nefarious's troopers break into her hideout in search of the infobot she has. It takes Clank during this process which warrants Rivet to chase after it and take it down. After getting him back, the two of them begin searching for a device to fix Clank's communicator so that he can contact Ratchet. Throughout the game, Rivet learns to trust her partners and realize that she doesn't need to always operate alone, and the game shows that having companions isn't something she's used to. The first of this instance can be seen when she's trying to give reassurance to Clank when he's expressing his grievances about feeling responsible for the cataclysm, as he was the one who rebuilt the Dimensionator, although Rivet finds that she doesn't really know what to say. Within a bar called Xerxes, Rivet runs into a pirate named Pierre who has a part that she needs. After fighting him for it, she inserts the part into Clank, and the two make communication with Ratchet. With reunions and introductions out of the way, Ratchet informs them that Dr. Nefarious crowned himself as the Emperor of this dimension, and to get everyone back to their own dimensions, they need to rebuild the Dimensionator. The three of them make a plan for Ratchet to go to a planet named Savali to meet a prophet that Clank met in the dimensional anomaly. Meanwhile, Rivet and Clank go to Blizar Prime to find a rare mineral named Phase Quartz to power the Dimensionator. With their plan set, they set off, unbeknownst to a spy within Xerxes who now knows where they'll be regrouping. This is where the game opens up to you more, as there are a lot of moments where you're given the choice on how to proceed the story, either as Ratchet who goes to Savali or as Rivet who goes to Blizar Prime. Regardless of how you approach this, both missions link back to one another and the story proceeds the same. This mission structure makes both characters feel important to the story, and I feel as though the game overall does a better job at handling its inclusion of two protagonists rather than just one, as I didn't feel as though anyone was being left out of important moments or not having enough attention drawn to them. Rivet and Clank go to Blizar Prime and use what is known as a Blizon crystal to travel between this dimension where something turbulent occurred and wrecked everything, and another where everything is still intact. They find and locate the Phase Quartz while also trying to stop the same disaster from occurring in this dimension as it did in Rivet's. They need to shut off a drill in order to achieve this, in which during this process the drill shoots a beam and shatters the Phase Quartz into pieces. Hence, Rivet and Clank go to Torren 4 to find someone named the Fixer who may be able to help them. Upon getting to Torren 4, they find that the Fixer is a giant robot that turned off unexpectedly after prolonged efforts to fight off pirates. In their attempts to fix the Fixer, they're ambushed by Pierre and his pirates. After fighting them off, Rivet turns on the Fixer who, in some sort of crisis of not being able to fix anything, begins wreaking havoc. Clank eventually says some reassuring words to the Fixer which resolves this momentary crisis. He repairs the Phase Quartz, and with their business on this planet resolved, Rivet and Clank return to their ship. Meanwhile, Ratchet meets with Gary on Savali, who mentions that in order to find out how to build the Dimensionator, he needs to go to the interdimensional archives with the help of his apprentice that he'll soon meet. So after Ratchet stops an invasion on the town, he watches the archives begins walking away as a result of an interdimensional anomaly. As it does this, a character we'll soon know as Kit falls off. She's also Gary's apprentice, and after Ratchet greets her, she mentions that she isn't a good partner when asked to team with him. Ratchet convinces her to do so by promising that the two will go their separate ways if things go awry. This part of the game is where you get the hover boots, which makes moving around easier and quicker, especially in large landscapes akin to Savali. I personally enjoyed using them, and I thought that they enhanced the overall experience of the traversal in this game. Before Ratchet and Kit can access the archives, they need to free the monks currently being held captive by Nefarious' robots. After doing so, they reach the archives and enter. Within, they confirm the safety of something known as the Dimensional Map, which will be of importance later, before Kit explains that it is possible to rebuild the Dimensionator with something known as the Forge, which is on Kedaro Station. Before the two leave, Kit turns into a giant war robot in order to take down more of Nefarious' troops, and while in this trance, almost attacks Ratchet. She later explains that she was built to be one of Nefarious' war robots, and that one night while she was on patrol, she spotted a rebel trying to enter Nefarious' tower and attacked them. With her being afraid of what she's capable of, she came to Savali to protect others from herself. I appreciate that this moment does a good job at foreshadowing a later point in the plot, but for now Ratchet reminds Kit of the deal they made prior and convinces Kit to remain teamed with him. Another thing I appreciate about this game's plot is that it gives an equal amount of focus to Ratchet in the way that it did with Rivet. An example of this being during his and Kit's ride to Kedaro Station, where he explains his fear of meeting the other Lombaxes and disappointing them. Regardless, Ratchet and Kit eventually build the Dimensionator on Kedaro Station and go back to Xerxes to meet with Rivet and Clank so that they can power it with the Phase Quartz. Before they can power the Dimensionator, Dr. Nefarious and his robots ambush them and force them to give the Dimensionator and the Phase Quartz. This leads to Ratchet distracting the other robots while Rivet fights Dr. Nefarious. While Rivet and Kit emerge victorious, Ratchet and Clank don't, as Emperor Nefarious seems to have unexpectedly arrived and ambushed them. He'd been absent as he was neutralizing the rebels on his hit list. Currently, he's managed to neutralize them all with the exception of Rivet and Captain Quantum, the latter of which is in hiding. The Emperor and Dr. Nefarious go to Sargasso, which leads to Rivet and Kit pursuing them. Meanwhile, Ratchet and Clank go to find Pierre, who knows where Captain Quantum is. On Sargasso, Rivet and Kit fight off Nefarious' forces, after of which the Emperor himself arrives and sends her to a pocket dimension. During her traversal out of there, she explains to Kit how she lost her arm. She was trying to infiltrate the Nefarious tower alone one day, although she was spotted and attacked by a Nefarious war robot. This led to her getting away and having to build a prosthetic arm. Rivet seems to have moved on from the ordeal, but Kit appears guilt-ridden at the realization that she is the one who took Rivet's arm. This moment does a good job at building suspense, as it makes the player anticipate Rivet's eventual finding out for herself regarding Kit and who she truly is. Meanwhile, Ratchet and Clank arrive on Ardolis and rescue Pierre, who then directs them to Captain Quantum. Quantum. Upon eventually finding him, they find that Captain Quantum is this dimension's equivalent to Captain Quark, that he'd been disguised as a robot this entire time in order to hide from the Emperor. Furthermore, Quantum has also bugged Emperor Nefarious so that he can view where the Emperor is and what he's doing via his helmet, although it fails to stop the Emperor from finding him and attacking him. In their efforts to escape, Captain Quantum saves Ratchet and Clank, sacrificing himself in the process as he's captured by the Emperor in doing so. After getting back to their ship, Ratchet and Clank learn that the Emperor Nefarious is planning to infiltrate other dimensions with the use of the dimensional map on Savali, hence they go there to confirm whether it's still there. Meanwhile, Rivet and Kit infiltrate their ship to check if the map is there. Eventually, the dimensional map is confirmed to be within a dimensional anomaly, so after solving it, they gain access to the map which is taken by the Emperor during an ambush. Emperor Nefarious then imprisons Ratchet and Clank, unaware of the presence of Rivet and Kit who are nearby. The latter decides to activate her abilities as a war robot and begins attacking the Emperor, only to get imprisoned as well. Rivet, now alone and having found out that Kit is the one who took her arm, returns to her ship and goes to Nefarious Tower, where everyone in the Resistance is being held. Once Rivet frees the other rebels, she only manages to find Clank with Ratchet and Kit being in a different cell. As she fights through the facility, Clank advises Rivet to try and forgive Kit for what she did. Eventually they're both rescued and Ratchet and Clank leave Rivet and Kit to talk amongst themselves. The latter mentions that she's going to return to Savali alone, much to Rivet's annoyance as Kit is abandoning her efforts to stop the Emperor at such a crucial time. Out of frustration, Rivet leaves Kit alone. This scene does a good job at showing the many layers as to why Rivet is annoyed here. Namely, the fact that Kit destroyed Rivet's arm and left her to make the painful journey back alone when Kit could have helped, as she did imply that she had some sentience after the attack. Another reason for Rivet's frustration is that Kit didn't tell her about this sooner, as if she had done so in a more easily digestible manner, Rivet could have had more time to process who Kit is and what she did. Furthermore, Kit and Rivet could have had more time to talk about it amongst themselves. Additionally, Rivet is annoyed at Kit for leaving them in such a crucial time as she's going to hide away again rather than stay and help the others fight Nefarious. At Xerxes, Ratchet and Rivet get into an argument concerning Kit, although it doesn't really go anywhere. Hence, we reach the finale of the story, and this moment in particular is the player's last chance to finish any lingering side content within the game. Emperor Nefarious decides to attack Ratchet and Clank's dimension, which is where the rebels go to fight and stop him. The finale alternates between Ratchet and Rivet as both make extensive efforts to take down the giant robot that the Emperor is fighting within. After Ratchet and Clank take down the robot, they find themselves on the other side of the city, and as they begin making their way back to Rivet with reinforcements, she fights Emperor Nefarious. Kit eventually re-emerges during this fight to aid Rivet, noting that she doesn't want to run away from herself and the responsibility to save the dimensions. Kit launches Rivet into the air so that she can whack Emperor Nefarious with her hammer. The Emperor then drops the dimension into which falls into the hands of Ratchet and Clank, who summon a Kraken to defeat the Emperor. After this, Dr Nefarious gets crushed by a piece of debris whilst boasting, which gives Ratchet, Clank, Rivet and Kit the chance to repair the dimensions. Rivet and Kit get the chance to put aside their differences and reconsolidate their partnership, hence ending Ratchet and Clank rift apart. After beating the game, there's a few things that you can do. Namely, you can play through Challenge Mode, which is this game's rendition of New Game Plus. It's a more challenging experience and I found it to be an enjoyable one. The game also has collectibles such as the Golden Bolt, Infobots and Lombax Lorbs, the last of which gives information on the Lombaxes and why they were mapping out dimensional coordinates. Getting all of the weapons is also a fairly entertaining experience, with the most notable one being the Rhino. Other than that, this game is a really enjoyable one that I can recommend to anyone for its well-executed story, particularly concerning its use of two protagonists as opposed to one, and its gameplay, which was a fun and engaging experience. With these factors in mind, I would recommend Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart. So, there's the video. I hope you all enjoyed it. I apologize for my absence. I've been working on this video for a while and I also fell sick during production, which hindered my ability a bit. Nonetheless, I'm planning to upload a lot during this month and I hope you will enjoy what I have to offer. If you want to view the list of games I want to make videos about in the future, then you can always do so through the link in the description. Additionally, if you want to follow me, then my socials will be linked in the description, as well as any afterthoughts or messages I may want to add. With that, I haven't really got much else I want to say, so I'll see you all in my next video. I hope you all enjoyed the video, and I wish you all a very pleasant evening.